So we're a few weeks away from the Wolverine, a movie that I am really looking forward to seeing. And so I figured that, in order to get us all ready for the Wolverine, that I would take a look back and review all 5 X-Men movies that have come out. And we got a lot to cover, so let's get started. X-Men 1 is directed by Bryan Singer, and it stars a ton of people. It stars Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, James Marsden, Halle Berry, Anna Paquin. I forget the rest. So many big and good actors in this movie, and the story of X-Men is that it takes place in this world in which basically they say at the very beginning that mutation is the next stage of evolution, and many people are affected by a group of people are affected by that. By that evolution, that mutation, and so as a result of that, they have powers. They have the power. Some of them they have power. Some of them have the power to walk through walls, use lightning, heal, enter minds, just all those types of powers. And in this world, there are a group of people known as the X-Men, led by Charles Xavier, who's played by Patrick Stewart, and they protect the humans, because in this world humans are prejudiced against the mutants. They hate them. They feel that they're a threat. So the X-Men basically just still protect them regardless of that. And then you have the Brotherhood, led by Eric Lenter, who's played by Ian McKellen, who basically wants to get rid of. He basically wants the race of humanity to end, because he feels that mutants are the next stage. They are the future. So that's what basically the movie's about. It's that whole conflict between it's the whole conflict between the Brotherhood and the X-Men, and sort of just that type of thing. So when I was a kid, I was a huge X-Men fan. I grew up reading the comic books, and for all of us late 90s kids out there, we watched X-Men Evolution. Great show, by the way. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. It's really awesome. And X-Men 1 has a special place in my heart, because it was like the first superhero movie I ever saw in the theaters. I was like 6 or 7 when it came out. I remember when I was a kid, the movie was just like a huge event. Like, so many people were excited to see this movie. So many people were just like anticipating it, and for many of us, it didn't disappoint, and that's how we felt back in the year 2000. And ironically, I hadn't seen X-Men 1 in a while. The last time I saw X-Men 1 was like a few weeks before X-Men First Class came out. So it's really interesting now watching it as an adult. Was it like 13 years later? It's crazy. So was X-Men 1 still a good movie? Was it still as great as I remember it? And yes, it's still a good movie. Is it one of the best superhero movies out there? No, but it's still pretty good. And so I'm going to skip to the good and talk about the bad. So the good in this movie is that the majority of the actors are fantastic. The acting is it's great. It's Patrick Stewart was great. He was perfect for Professor X. So was Ian McKellen. He's perfect as Magneto. The rest of the actors, I think, do a decent job with what they're given, especially James Marsden and Halle Berry and Anna Paquin. They all did like a decent job. So there's that, though. And I especially like all the references they made to the X-Men animated show from the 90s, and they reference a bunch of X-Men comic books and so forth, and it's really cool to see those references. So I'm not gonna say what they are, but catch them on. They're pretty good. And the action is pretty cool. The action, especially it's pretty exciting, especially towards the end with that fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth on the Statue of Liberty. I was like, that's a really cool fight scene, and I remember it was just, as a kid, I thought it was amazing. But nowadays I'm just like, yeah, it's pretty cool. The action's pretty cool. Now we get to some of the bad in this movie, and my main problem with this movie was the way they handled Wolverine. Now, for the record, I'll say I like Hugh Jackman as an actor as Wolverine. I think he's decent. He's all right. Like I said, he's decent with the other actors. The problem is though is that in the comic books and even they address this real well in the animated show is that Wolverine is a loner. He's always like, I go where I want to go, Bob. That type of thing. And in this movie, it's like 90% Wolverine, 10% the rest of the X-Men. And when you do that, when you focus a majority of your movie on Wolverine, you basically just ignore the rest of the X-Men. And that's bad, especially when this is an ensemble movie. And in an ensemble, every actor has to be strong. They have to feel like an integral part of the story. And I just didn't feel like that with the rest of the actors. It just felt very underdeveloped. Especially, Cyclops feels underdeveloped. Storm feels underdeveloped. Jean Grey feels underdeveloped. This movie basically should have just been called Wolverine the X-Men, because that's what it was. And like one of the things I loved about the cartoon shows, both 90s X-Men and X-Men Evolution X-Men, was that it really Wolverine didn't really get much screen time, because they were like, he's the loner, he goes and does whatever he wants. And I kind of wish that that's how this X-Men movie should have been. Instead, you should basically just follow Wolverine around and just have him do his thing. So there's that though. And that was probably my main problem with this movie. The other problem I have with this movie is that also the effects are pretty dated in this movie, especially during the Statue of Liberty fight. Obviously you can tell it's a green screen. Just the green screen effects don't look really that good. Especially some of the powers, they don't look that good either. Especially with the claws and the laser beams and so forth. I should give it props. I should give it props though. I mean, I'm not giving props. I should cut it some slack. Because maybe it's Bryan Singer's like first CG movie. But at the same time, this came out in 2000. By the year 2000, dinosaurs looked a lot more realistic, and effects could still hold up to this day, like in Matrix and Terminator 2 and so forth. So there's that, and there's also some really silly moments in this movie. Like so many moments I was just like, that's just plain stupid. Like there's just like one, like I'll give you two scenes. Like the one of the scene is like happens like one point, like Senator Kelly gets these becomes a mutant. Gets these powers, and so what happens is he has the power to stretch. So he's stretching through these like prison bars, and as he's stretching through, because he's stretching his face first. His eyes just like pop out like a cartoon or something. It looked like one of those like transformations Jim Carrey did in The Mask. It was just like so googly eyed, and I started laughing. There's like this other like silly moment in the movie in which Storm is like trying to fry Toad, and right as she's about to like do it, she says to Toad, "Do you know what happens when a Toad gets struck by lightning? It's the same thing that happens to everything else." And that's a stupid line right there. I was just like, that is, I don't know who wrote that, but that was just a stupid line. It was a terrible line, and obviously, a lot of people have like made fun of that scene, judging by the internet memes and like amount of YouTube videos I've seen of it. But anyways, and one other problem I had with it, it's a small problem, is that this movie is really short. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, and because of that, it tends to feel a little rushed. Like moments in the story feel like are just like chopped down just so we can get to the finale. Like the first half of the movie, I was like, oh, they're taking their time, they're establishing the world, they're establishing the character and so forth. This is all right. But right when the scene in the train happens, that's when I started to feel like things were rushing. Like they were like, okay, we're in the mansion, now we're getting to the jet, now we're getting to the Statue of Liberty, now we're getting to the lab, now we're getting to the ending. It's just like it felt like Bryan Singer probably had like a 2 hour and 20 minute version of X-Men, but then the studio was like, nope, you gotta chop some things out, you gotta take some things out, just shorten it up, and that's how it felt to me. And it's interesting because I have X-Men 1.5, which is which is basically just X-Men the special edition, and I was kind of expecting that it would have 15 or 20 minutes of deleted scenes on there or something like that. Instead, there's 6 or 7 minutes, which is just weird. Which is weird because for what I was expecting. But anyways, so yeah, I think X-Men 1 is decent. I think it's sort of lost its edge over the years, but it's still a pretty decent movie. And I am sorry, I got a text. And yeah, I think it's a decent movie. So I'm gonna give X-Men 1 B. So yeah, those are my 2 cents on X-Men 1, and stay tuned for me to give you guys my other thoughts on the next X-Men movie. So stay tuned.